Welcome to the Startup Grind.
To students what I had learned. But, most of the entrepreneurs who taught at the time basically were coming in and telling war stories. Let me tell you how it was when I was, blah, 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 which is kind of interesting, but after a while, it's kind of like eating candy. There's, you're still hungry later. And I decided that maybe it was interesting to take this observation about this pattern and turn it into a class. And so I wrote a class for UC Berkeley in the business school called Customer Development. And I was practicing some of these ideas, and at the same time, an old VP of engineering of mine from rocket science days, a guy named Harvey, was starting it's like fifth company with a real young, hot co-founder. And Will wanted to raise money from me yet again. And this time I said, Will, why don't you and your co-founder sit through my class and see if you can learn something here. Steve, I said, well, come on. But by the first class, his co-founder was really getting into this and saying, hey, yeah, and do you know about agile engineering? And I'm going, what's that? And we had a great time. And so the co-founder, and I kind of knew him because I was on their board of their last company, which had cratered, called There.com, and the co-founder's name was Eric Reese. So Eric sat through my customer development class, and it was Eric who said, Steve, you've been Xeroxing your class notes. Why don't you just stick them together in a book? You're on the board of Cafe Press, self-publish this damn thing and stick it on Amazon. I said, Eric, what a great idea. And so the 4 steps of the Epiphany, came from Eric Reese sitting in my class, and the Lean Startup movement came from me sitting on Eric's board at IMVU. And Eric was the first guy to recognize that it was not only customer development, that it was the combination of customer development and the whole agile engineering methodology that had emerged since I had been an entrepreneur that really made a powerful combination. And that's where the whole Lean Startup movement started as well. I forgot what the question was again, but I hope I answered something.
No, it's great. Let me just read one quote. Maybe you can just explain the customer development methodology. Customer development recognizes the startup's missions as a relentless search to refine its vision and idea and to make changes in every aspect of the business invalidated during the search process. Why is a startup's job to relentlessly search for that business model, that repeatable business model?
Because the short answer is because you're probably wrong. And one of the great things about the yin and yang of an entrepreneur is you wouldn't get up in the morning unless you were passionate about your vision, right? It's you don't get up in the morning and go, well, I'm probably sort of kind of right. I mean, you don't do that. You've got to believe, because why else would you work the number of hours or just the commitment or try to convince people to join you on this quest? But the reality is, most of the time, your hypotheses about product market fit, about the value proposition and customer segment, is just fundamentally wrong. It's just wrong. You might believe it. In fact, you've got to believe it. But the mistake is executing like it's true. It's not the mistake is not believing it. The mistake is just assuming that if I believe it, it must absolutely, the world is just waiting for me to kind of finish coding or building the hardware, and then the only problem I'm going to have is where does the bags of money go? I mean, and I don't know, only this half of the room thought that was interesting. So let me where the bags of money go. Can you get it over here? I just want to make sure. Maybe helical something left hand and right hand. I just wanted to explain that it's part of the yin and yang of entrepreneurial DNA. You kind of got to believe, but you make some assumptions. That is, and the key assumptions are, I understand the customer problem. Big idea. If I understand it, therefore it must be right. And implicitly, when you say I understand the customer problem, or implicitly, you're saying, therefore I know what features they need. And if you say I know what features they need, then all I need to do is go implement. And so I don't need to get out of the building. That's kind of the nature of entrepreneurship. And what I try to point out in the 4 Steps of the Epiphany and the new book, The Startup Owner's Manual, is almost 99% of the time, those initial assumptions about the customer problem and what features they need, among 50 other things, is just simply wrong. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're wrong forever. But it means that if you spend all your energy trying to implement that first vision, it's a ton of waste. Wasted time, wasted money, wasted energy, wasted company. And what we've now figured out is if you follow a customer development process, I can't guarantee you'll be Facebook or Google or Apple, but I will guarantee you that you'll live a lot longer, and that over a
Or startup career.
well, and maybe somebody won't kill you. I mean,
Please share.
right. What we've discovered is, for those of you in computer science, is entrepreneurship without any guidance is an NP complete problem. And if you think of having a methodology, we collapse it into an NP problem, meaning it's still very hard, but it's now computationally solvable. And I don't mean solvable for you're going to be Facebook or Twitter or some black swan, but it means the odds of you going out of business out of stupidity for the first 2 years, we can now eliminate. And so if you really want to think, of what the Startup Owner Manual title really should have been, because I almost thought of calling this, it's the book on how to fail less. Thank you. It was funny up here.
He's a black card member.
Black card
He's very smart.
He's an experienced guy. So
for this
fail less. That means you'll. All right. So I hope that is.
Yeah. So the book is built more like it's not something you'd pick up on your trip to Maui to read at the pool, right? It's more of
That's where I wrote it, but
it's more of an encyclopedia. It's a
reference manual.
It's a reference manual.
Right.
Yeah. And I wanted to take one piece of it and just get some experiences from a couple of people in the room, and then maybe we could analyze it. Because in my opinion, if I had attended this in early 2010, before the iPad launched, and we launched our game, I would not have failed quite so hard.
I don't believe it. Was it your first startup?
Yeah, pretty much.
So here's the interesting thing. I want to test it on you. First-time entrepreneurs, when you hear advice like in the Startup Owner's Manual or 4 Steps to E.piphany, you kind of file it away along with other interesting tidbits like the Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion table. It's kind of nice to have and whatever. But I got to tell you, you're talking like an entrepreneur who screwed it up and now actually has gone back and learned some lessons. I will contend that if I actually gave you this book the day you started your company, when you were feeling like the hot EA product manager, what are the odds you actually would have paid attention?
Well, I had a full head of hair at that time, Steve, so I was probably...
So the answer is you probably would have ignored it. Right?
Confidence was at all-time high.
No, but we won't go into that algorithm. But you see what I mean? And it's not a diss on anybody. It's just how we're wired. It's not till you actually have had, unless you're incredibly astute, and this room might be full of incredibly astute people, it took me 8 startups to kind of figure it out. Some people are a lot smarter. It's just that until you've had that, entrepreneurship is experiential. It's like getting the sex manual. That's great. Okay, I'm supposed to do what? And then after the first time you had sex, you went, oh yeah, let's do that again. This is kind of the anti-sex. Don't do that. That hurts. The analogy I have.
No one in this room got that joke. Knowing my audience.
I'll use a better example. I still remember the moment I taught my younger daughter the word hot. My younger daughter was wired kind of like me, bouncing off of balls and whatever. And I remember, Sarah, fire's hot. Hot. Sarah, hot. And then I went, okay, and I just made sure there was nothing flammable around her, and she put her finger in her. Sarah's never forgotten the word hot, and we still remember that exact moment. Entrepreneurship is like that. Until you've kind of touched the third rail of failure, some of these lessons are just theory. And so, I'm glad the book is popular, and I'm glad whatever, and for a lot of people, it will sit on a shelf forever. I got to tell you the funniest thing about the book is, 4 Steps to E.piphany has never been on Kindle or iBook or whatever. And Startup Owner's Manual, I got hate mail going, it's not on the Kindle, I'm not going to buy it forever. And I'm kind of going, help me understand. This is a book that could change your life. And I appreciate, and by the way, it will be in an electronic version, sometime in 2012, let me just say that. But just to kind of go, I'm going to hold my breath and turn blue until you, wait a minute, about 3,000 years ago, there were some guys who came down with a mountain and they were carrying stone tablets, and people made religions and they were carrying the tablets around. I mean, these aren't the tablets, but you don't have advice per pound, guys. It's not. In fact, if you want lightweight advice, I'll be happy to give you other books on the Kindle. But when there is advice, you need to chase it. I remember flying to New York for 15-minute meetings. I did that multiple times in my life. If you're a killer entrepreneur, I don't care where the great advice is, and if it's chiseled in stone or bark or somewhere else, you will go after that, a great advisor or great someone else.
Yeah.
And so just as a riff, I have to tell you, I've saved all the emails of must have been 5 or 10 just nasty people going, well, it's not, never going to buy it. Going, if it were me, I'd be going out, figuring out where our ranch is, and standing outside the gate, going like, can I get a preview cow?
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the
No,
question?
that was great. I don't know. So you answered it. It was awesome.